Let's continue in Al-Qawl Al-Jaliyy. The author says the third category of apostasy is sayings, which are too many to be counted. Yani, too numerous to be counted by us. Yani, they are unlimited here by us. That's for clarity. The Arabic just says this, they're unlimited. And some people had a question about if you could use that word. So you can use that word. It's valid. You say, for example, how many rak'ahs, sunnah rak'ahs you're allowed to pray at nighttime? It's unlimited. How many slave women a man can have? It's unlimited. Some examples are to say to a Muslim, "Oh kafir, oh Jew, oh Christian," or "you without a religion, oh you without a religion," provided that the meaning intended by the speaker is that the religion of the addressed person is kufr, blasphemy, or Judaism or Christianity, or not a religion. Then these expressions are apostasy and blasphemy, because saying that Islam is blasphemy. He's saying to a Muslim, "Oh you, one of these." It's another way of saying, "Oh you whose religion is blasphemy." So that's blasphemy. You know what's interesting? There's some people, subhanallah wa bihamdihi, these ones, the ones who say the wrong thing about the impeccability of the prophets, and then they insulted the Jam'iyyah because of that. And they say the wrong thing about the precautionary shahada, and they say the wrong thing about the brothers of Yusuf. Those ones, they also said, you can ask a kafir what's his religion. And then when he said, knowing that he's a kafir, and then when he says, "I'm a kafir," then you didn't commit kufr. And he didn't either, because he's just informing you. So that's why those people went bonkers like that, because they have no comprehension. Didn't Imam An-Nawawi say in the example, if someone were to ask him, "How could you beat the child like this? Aren't you a Muslim?" And to that, his deliberate answer was, "No." He blasphemed. So what's the difference between saying, if someone says, "Are you a Muslim?" he says no, and saying, "Are you a Christian?" he says yes. Those people find a difference between those two. So they say that the first one's kufr and the second one's not kufr. And those people, they say Jam'iyyah is sick with so many people who have waswas. What do you think is the problem with these people? They were probably the sickest ones. It is not the case, i.e., it is not blasphemy if the speaker did not intend the apparent meaning of these expressions. The apparent meaning. So you might wonder how it's not explicit, which that's a good question. This looks like it's explicit if a person doesn't have strong language to say to a Muslim, "Oh, blasphemer." How is that not explicit? Because that's possibly a metaphor. And so then it's not explicit. That's just like saying to a person, "You lion, you beast," for example, "you monster," or the like, "you pig," or the like, "you peacock," whatever it is, whatever is the appropriate reason for the metaphor would be the meaning. Like if he's a peacock, maybe means he's beautiful. If he's a pig, means he's a slob. If he's a lion, means probably he's brave. If he's a beast, means he's strong, or maybe means he's evil. Could mean strong though, not with a bad meaning. Means strong like an animal. So that's apparent meaning. That's metaphor. That's likening without saying like, comparing without saying like. So it is not the case that this is blasphemy if the speaker did not intend the apparent meaning of these expressions. Meaning, if he intended some metaphor here. For example, if a person addressed a Muslim as "Oh kafir," and it was said to him with the purpose of likening him, comparing him to these non-Muslims, regarding the abjectness of the addressee's actions. Yani, he has behavior like non-Muslims. Or his poor mistreatment of Muslims, as unbelievers mistreat them. Then it's not blasphemy. We didn't say it's not haram though. It's not blasphemy, but it is an enormous sin because it has an insult. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Sibabul Muslimi fusuq." Insulting the Muslim is a major sin. And the speaker becomes a fasiq. Yes, footnote here. Fasiq is a Muslim who commits major sins, or he committed a major sin. He'd be a fasiq. It's enough to do one major sin to be a fasiq. And then when you repent, you're not a fasiq anymore. It's not permissible to call a Muslim by the name of his prior religion when he's a convert, meaning to say, oh, Jew, meaning who used to be a Jew. And that's what the person understands when he says it, too. That's what it means to him when he says it. When he says, hey, Jew, he means, hey, you who used to be a Jew. And it's not permissible to call a Muslim by the name of a sin that he committed after he repented. Like, hey, alcoholic, hey, crackhead. To ridicule one of the names of Allah, the Exalted. So I'd say put a capital N. For the name of Allah, the Exalted, and his promise, just like there's capital P here, and his promise of paradise and the enjoyment therein. To ridicule one of his names, like saying Ar-Rahman is a bad name, the Exalted, or his promise of paradise and the enjoyment therein to the believers, that Allah promised them with paradise. So ridiculing that is like saying, paradise, that's a baby's toy. I have bigger things on my mind. Or to ridicule his threat of hellfire and torture by a person who is not ignorant that these matters, the name of God and his promise and threat that were ridiculed, are confirmed by Allah or for Allah. I think that's supposed to be for Allah. But the meaning is right. The Exalted. Like the statement said by some vile people, tomorrow we will be cozy in the fire of hell. That's a nice translation. Because saying in the Arabic looks like it's saying, tomorrow we will warm up in the fire of hell. This is a good way, good translation here. I didn't think of that. As it mocks the religion and belies the book of God. Yeah, and it belittles the significance of the torture. And Shaykh told us that as for belittling hell itself, it's not blasphemy. Because the place of hell itself is belittled in the Quran. وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرُ. What a bad fate it is. And many ayahs like that. It's not good. Yani, imagine a trash dumpster. You wouldn't think highly of the dumpster, trash dumpster. I'm not sure which ayah that is. And there's more than one ayah like that. But I don't have a reference for any of them at the moment. So it's not the torture, it's not the place of hell itself that has to be respected. It is the torture of God that has to be respected. To say with the intent to belittle the command of Allah, if Allah ordered me with such a matter, I would not do it. Also, this might seem to be explicit blasphemy to someone. How could it not be explicit? Because it's possible this person is saying, I'm such a poor Muslim. My faith is so weak that as an example of my sinfulness, although I do believe in Allah and His Messenger and I believe in Islam, but I'm so bad that if Allah ordered me with such a matter, I would not do it. So he's not blaspheming here. Or to say out of belittlement of the Qibla, if the Qibla were at such a specific direction, I would not pray towards it. Same thing. So this appears to be explicit blasphemy. And the Shaykh does say these types of statements are usually said for blasphemy, or usually they would be blasphemy when said. But it's just important for you to be able to know how to interpret statements. It's not just because you understand a language that really, or it's not just that because you speak a language that really you understand the workings of the language. Or to say, if Allah gave me paradise, I would not enter it, with belittlement or demonstrating obstinacy against the religion in all these cases. However, if they were not said out of belittlement, stubbornness, or belying the religion, then it is not blasphemy, like we said. Question, if someone were to use the phrase as hell, for example, hot as hell, or far as hell, or things like that, would that be belittling the religion? Well, even if that were explicit blasphemy in itself, if, I'm not saying it is, if it were, you'd still need to consider if a person understands that. because as hell means to a high degree. That's what he that's what he means usually. It's not even thinking of hell necessarily. And he would put other words there also, like ish word, the S word, for example, or another word. One might say as I don't know what, for example, to express ultimate degree or very high degree. So there's so many words that get put there that what they're really saying is so much to a high degree. So if a person said hot as hell or far as hell, for example, for me, I wouldn't rush to deem him as a kafir because it's likely that this has a meaning for him other than what it looks like. Is that clear? If anything, just advise the person and say, be mindful of what you say. Think about the words you say. Don't say words without realizing what they are. Amin fikum. For a sick person to say, for example, after being ordered to pray, if Allah punishes me for leaving out prayers despite my sickness, he would be unjust to me. He becomes a disbeliever because he attributed injustice to Allah. Yes, that's explicit blasphemy. To say about an occurrence, this occurrence happened without the predestining of Allah, whether the occurrence were good or evil. That's explicit blasphemy too. To say, if the prophets or the angels or all the Muslims testified before me, meaning in front of me, that something is so, I would not accept it from them. That's explicit blasphemy. He means, I would not believe them in what they said. Yani, if you want, you can put here instead of in. About. I would not believe them about what they said. In such a case, one becomes a disbeliever for belying the known religious texts. To say after being told to practice one of the sunnahs, like the toothstick, like using the siwak, the toothstick, with the purpose of belittlement, to say with the purpose of belittlement of the Prophet's sunnah, I will not do that even if it is a recommended matter. Period. And then you can start a new sentence. Then, because of that, one falls into blasphemy. Unlike the person who says that not intending mockery of the Prophet's sunnah, like he means to say to the person, even though it is a sunnah, since I'm not obligated to do it, I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to do it just because you told me to do it. Such a person does not become a disbeliever. To say about an enemy, for example, if this person were a prophet, I would not believe in him. Then one becomes a blasphemer due to their mockery of the office of prophethood that this statement implies. Should be small p here. That's clear, inshallah. Because if he were a prophet, you'd have to believe in him. So how can you say, if he were a prophet, I would not believe in him? To say when a scholar issues a religious judgment or verdict, a fatwa, what is this law? What kind of law is this? With the purpose of belittling the judgment of the Islamic law and objecting to it, then one becomes a disbeliever. Unlike if the scholar gave this person a judgment which he deems false, the one who's taking it deems it false and contrary to the religion. And because of that, the recipient of this fatwa replied as such in opposition to the scholar, as if he is telling him, what are these words you claim to be part of the religion of Allah when they are not? Then he does not become a disbeliever. Here, this is small t. Then he does not become a disbeliever. And that's the end of the sentence there. And this question mark doesn't end the sentence because it's inside of quotes. To say, may Allah's dam be upon every religious scholar intending comprehensiveness, i.e. generalizing it to all religious scholars. As a result, the speaker becomes a kafir. So here, that's a sentence, period, and then capital A. As a result, the speaker becomes a disbeliever. However, if one did not intend to include all the religious scholars, but he meant specific scholars because of what he believes of their corrupt condition, and this statement was said within a context which indicates that intended meaning, Meaning, he generalized and said, damn all the scholars. But he said that within the confines of a conversation. He said that within the confines of a particular context. He didn't say it open without a context. For example, if the issue of corrupt scholars of a certain area were raised, then following that he said, may Allah's dam be upon every scholar, while intending the said scholars. When he said that, he meant, yani, in his mind, he's just sticking to the conversation only, although his words are general. So he intended the said scholars, the mentioned scholars. Then he would not become a disbeliever. Although the utterance of such a statement is not sinless. Although the utterance of such a statement is not sinless, i.e., his statement is sinful. However, if there were no context indicating his intention of specification, then he becomes a disbeliever, even if he says, I meant the scholars of my time. This is a very important case. This is exactly what the careless speaker falls into. And subhanAllah, now it reached me that someone who learned would say a statement like this. And then when challenged, when said, you can't talk like that, you know the rules of blasphemy. Then they said, he's so quick to say something's blasphemy. This is the rules here. Don't play games here. This is going to include saying something about all men, because that's going to include the prophets. And it's going to include saying something about all humans, or saying something about all Arabs, or saying something about all women. And it's not going to matter if a person said, I didn't mean it like that, because he said that. That's the rule. So teach that to your friends and to your families. To say, I do not acknowledge Allah, the angels, the prophet, meaning our master Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or any other prophet, or to say, I do not acknowledge the Islamic laws that Allah revealed to his prophet, or to say, I do not acknowledge Islam, is blasphemy. So this is a fragment. There's no predicate here. To say, and then need something to end the sentence. To say in response to another person telling him, why did you do this prohibited matter? Do you not know the judgment? So to say, I do not know the judgment, while ridiculing the judgment revealed by Allah. This is not merely a lie. He knows the judgment. He's not merely lying. He's ridiculing. Such a person is an apostate and a blasphemer. Like if someone, let's say, disavowed his son or any other family member, and he would say, I don't have a son. I don't have a brother. I don't know any brother of mine. This is a way of ridiculing, of disrespecting. To mention a verse from the Quran with the intention of belittling its meaning, like to say, وَكَأْسًا دِهَاقًا, after one has filled a cup with a drink, with the intent of belittling it or imputing falsehood to the promise that Allah made to the faithful, that when they are in paradise, they will have a glass filled with a pleasant drink. So it means, and a cup filled to the brim, undoubtedly one becomes a disbeliever. Or to say with the purpose of belittling the verse, فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا, after one has emptied a drink, by pouring it out of a container. After one has emptied a drink by pouring it out of a container. Yani, فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا, it means, and it was like a mirage. So he pours a cup, he pours a drink out of a cup. He empties a cup, in other words. He empties a vessel. And so since there's nothing in there anymore, then he recites the ayah to make fun of the ayah. He says, وَكَأْسًا دِهَاقًا فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا, or to say upon weighing or measuring, وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ, out of belittling the verse, such as if he meant that Allah is saying, and his threat have no merit in my heart. Undoubtedly he becomes a disbeliever. It looks like So they put the meaning in the footnote. Yani, and when they sell to them by volume or weight, they cheat. When they sell to them by volume or weight, they cheat. So one says this when he's weighing or measuring. What does the Arabic say there? Okay, yani measuring by volume. Measuring by volume, because measurement has different weights. You could measure by count. You could measure by length. You can measure by weight. Weighing is measuring. So measuring by volume. That means the container. How much space, how much fits into that container. Or to say when seeing a crowd, وَحَشَرْنَاهُمْ فَلَمْ نُغَادِرْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا, and we shall gather them all, and we shall not leave out a single one. So he sees a crowd, and then he recites this ayah to make fun of the ayah. Similarly is here, not li, just similar. That's the subject of the sentence. Similar is any occasion where a person quotes the verses of the Quran with this intent, i.e., with the intention of belittling the Quran. Here, semicolon, because this is a complete sentence already. One becomes a disbeliever, period. However, if the quoting is not done with that intention, yani if citing the ayah is not done with that intention, such as quoting them in the above scenarios without the intention of belittlement, meaning what he's saying is, if a person misinterprets the ayah, but he's not disrespecting the ayah, one does not become a disbeliever. Nevertheless, this is prohibited, misinterpreting the ayah. As Shaykh Ahmad ibn Hajar said, this is not far from being prohibited. Yani, he's saying this is not unlikely prohibited. It is not unlikely prohibited. Yani, it's being prohibited is not unlikely. I.e., saying that it is prohibited is credible, which means it is the preponderant position, because such expressions constitute lack of proper etiquette with the Quran. Likewise, the one who insults a prophet, cuss, that's slang. Cuss, that's slang from curse. And curse means something also. What's meant here is insult. Likewise, the one who insults a prophet or an angel falls into blasphemy. An angel like Jibreel. Here, like Jibreel. Obviously for you, it's obvious, goes back to an angel. Doesn't go back to, falls into kufr. Like Jibreel, Azrael, Munkar, Nakir, or any of the honorable angels of Allah. Or if he says, I would be a pimp if I were to perform a prayer, he means, I'd be a bad person. This statement mocks prayer and demeans it. The pimp is a person who brings customers to fornicators. So one might say, why this example in particular? Because of the bad meaning of being that. So anything like that. He says, I would be a such and such if I prayed. Anything that means I wouldn't be a good person if I prayed. Or to say, nothing good has happened to me since I started praying. Because such a statement belittles prayer. All these quotes, they need a punctuation before the end of the quote. A comma or something before the end of the quote, not outside the quote. Because such a statement belittles prayer. Or to say, for example, after a person urged another to pray, prayer is not proper for me. Here, comma goes here. With the purpose of derision, yani belittling the prayer, mockery, sacrilege. However, if a menstruating woman said so, meaning prayer is not valid for me during my period, she does not fall into kufr. Here, the comma can be outside because it's not a direct quote. Even the quotation marks are not needed here. Or it could be single quotation mark to differentiate it from the actual quote. But says here, meaning, not said, so this is not a quote here. So then the comma can go outside the quotation mark. She does not fall into blasphemy. Or to say to a Muslim, I am your enemy and the enemy of your prophet, since it contains belittlement of the prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or to say to a descendant of the prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I am your enemy and the enemy of your grandfather, meaning the prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, if one meant a closer ancestor of that person, then it is not blasphemy. Or to say anything similar to those aforementioned abhorrent and ugly words. May Allah protect us from them. A large number of jurists of the four schools, like the Hanafi scholar Badr al-Rashid, who lived in the 8th century and authored a treatise clarifying certain expressions that nullify Islam, and the Maliki judge Iyad, who lived in the 6th century, in his book Ash-Shifa, may Allah have mercy upon both of them, enumerated many things that pertain to these issues, namely blasphemous beliefs, acts, and sayings. After their emergence in their time to warn people against them. So look, that whole paragraph is one sentence there. It says, a large number of jurists of the four schools, like the Hanafi scholar Badr al-Rashid, who lived in the 8th century and authored a treatise clarifying certain expressions that nullify Islam, and the Maliki judge Iyad, who lived in the 6th century, in his book Shifa, Ash-Shifa, may Allah have mercy upon both of them, enumerated many things that pertain to these issues. So somewhere around here, like let's say here, namely blasphemous beliefs, acts, and sayings, period. Then after their emergence in their time, so here just needs like to add something here to make it a proper sentence, just in parentheses or something. They did that after, for example, or this was after, so then you have a proper sentence. After their emergence in their time, to warn people against them or from them, to warn people from them, you warn from, to warn people from them, from those blasphemies. So here's end of a sentence. And then, which one is urged to look at, because whoever does not know evil is more likely to fall into it. So the issue here is connecting the bold. So the bold should all read as one flow. A large number of jurists, like the Hanafi scholar Badr al-Rashid and the Maliki judge Iyad, may Allah have mercy upon both of them, enumerated many things that pertain to these issues. Which one is urged to look at? Because whoever does not know evil is more likely to fall into it. So here, you can end the sentence here and then do the same thing here. Just add something that makes the sentence correct, in parentheses, for example, such as, they enumerated many things that pertain to these issues. These are issues, in parentheses, for example, which one is urged to look at? Because whoever does not know evil is more likely to fall into it. And the worst evil is unbelief in Allah. So now they brought the English back. This doesn't say kufr. The rule upon which scholars base their judgments in these cases is any belief, action, or saying which indicates belittling Allah, His books, His prophets, His angels, His rites, the indicators of His religion. That's not bad. And the signs of His religion, the symbols of His religion, i.e., the obvious matters known to be of the religion, like the prayer, adhan, so this could be small a here, and mosques, His rules, His promise of paradise and reward, or His threat of hellfire and torture is blasphemy. Hence, one must use caution with utmost effort to avoid these various nullifiers of faith at all times. I.e., the person should make the greatest effort to avoid that and be extremely careful about it, because whoever dies beyond the fold of Islam, outside of Islam, is a loser in this life and the hereafter. Wallahu a'lam. We'll stop there.